his whole bio, but he's got a PhD doctorate in economics, international relations, and has advised State Department, Pentagon, you name it. Been involved in a lot of operations around the world. And he's always proven on so many issues, energy policy, banking policy, geopolitical operations, and breaking news and analysis that just continues to be incredibly accurate over the years. Dr. Jerome Corsi on short notice joins us. He also is one of the main writers and top researchers at WND.com. That's WorldNetDaily.com, which we now know has been declassified, released by the Clinton Library they tried to destroy when it was the Western Journalism Center and WND, because they believed it might, quote, give the people the idea that they could have a choice in media. Well, I think that genie's out of the bottle now. Doc, I've been following your articles at WND, and I got to say, we don't have the staff to do it, but I remember a year ago, 2 years ago, you were on here exposing Odinga, and I went and pulled those articles back up, but you were on the show getting all these hundreds of millions up to the Muslim Brotherhood. Now I talked to Colonel Schaefer, who met with the head of Egyptian intelligence, and was also meeting with Capitol Hill yesterday, where he and other former top experts on Al-Qaeda, who fought Al-Qaeda, he headed up the anti-Al-Qaeda branch, wasn't allowed to kill bin Laden, as people know, in Operation Able Danger and Stratus Ivy. And he said, undoubtedly, he said 95%. Well, he said it's classified, but it's way over 65. Then another source told me 95%, similar source, that a bunch of people briefed Congress yesterday. He was coming out of Congress when he told me this, that they know 90+% is Al-Qaeda, and that this is actually the arming of Al-Qaeda to overthrow Assad, basically, and that Assad's going to fight back. I don't know how Obama's going to try to spin all of this, and I don't know what the grand strategy could be. Take part of Iraq, take part of Syria, make an ISIS state. Saudi Arabia is involved. I mean, this is a very dangerous game. This has got to be 10 times crazier than anything I've ever seen another administration do. Am I wrong in saying that? Because you were saying there was an Obama strategy from all your sources around the world. You've been to Kenya, been to Egypt, all these places, that he might be really doing a caliphate double cross and actually trying to turn the world over to radical Islam with Saudi Arabia. And I thought that might be too far because it was so bold. But now it really appears like he wants cover for letting this group under the name ISIS take over Africa, the Middle East, you name it, and then I guess let them attack us and take our liberties. I mean, what is the grand strategy here, Dr. Jerome Corsi?
Well, I think, Alex, you're on to the right track. I mean, first of all, you've got to start with the Muslim Brotherhood and the fact that Obama, through the Arab Spring, really supported the destabilization of the Middle East, toppling Gaddafi, toppling Mubarak in Egypt, and knowing, I mean, I was writing at the time that the Muslim Brotherhood would take over, which they did. And the Muslim Brotherhood, remember, the fundamental here is Sunni Shiite. Muslim Brotherhood is Sunni, as is Saudi Arabia and Qatar, or however you want to say it, Sunni. And Obama is backing and has backed the rebels fighting Assad, who are also Sunni. And in fact, those rebels fighting Assad are really interchangeable with ISIS, and they're interchangeable with the Muslim Brotherhood. And
well, that's what he said. He said clearly the Muslim Brotherhood is the front for Al-Qaeda. They've just changed their name to ISIS to confuse everybody because it's making Obama look bad to be aiding them.
And in fact, it's the same, the Muslim Brotherhood, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, these are all forms of the same group. It's Sunni, it's going against Assad, wants to establish with the funding of Saudi Arabia and Qatar, wants to establish a caliphate, a Sunni caliphate, very much like the Ottoman Empire going back centuries. This is what the goal is. And the ultimate enemy here is, first of all, Assad, because he's a friend of Iran, and Iran is a Shiite. And this is a Shiite-Sunni battle in which Obama has been trying since the Arab Spring to have the United States side with the Saudis with the Sunnis to defeat the Shiites and establish this caliphate in Iraq and Syria, and ultimately the entire Middle East and the entire world. I mean, that's the game plan here. And the lukewarm efforts to say we're going to do a little bit of bombing, which have very minimal chance of success against a group like ISIS, the way it's operating, well-funded Iraq oil money. We've now pulled out of Iraq in a way that, again, was against the advice of George W. Bush at the inappropriate time when essentially there is no army in Iraq that we could arm to fight against ISIS. And every military authority of any credibility or knowledge in the world understands that.
Well, the intel we've got is this is just some light bombing of a few little straggling groups, a few trucks, a few cars for PR, so Obama can then give hundreds of millions, if not billions, which the Republican leadership is green-lighting under Boehner today, directly to the so-called good rebels to overthrow Assad. So this is really taking public sentiment to take out IS or Al-Qaeda, or ISIL as Obama calls it, take that support to go after these horrible people, and then go ahead and use it to destabilize and overthrow Assad. The Russians are going to see through that. Assad's going to see through that. What's going to happen if Assad shoots at our aircraft when they're flying over? This is really getting crazy.
Also, let's make it really clear to everybody that we're funding ISIS through the back door. In other words, supporting the Syrian rebels against Assad is supporting ISIS. And this goes back to the same thing we were doing with Ambassador Stevens in Libya, when he first, even before Gaddafi was toppled, came in to Benghazi in a cargo ship and began a CIA operation of funding and providing arms to the rebels opposing Gaddafi, were the same Muslim Brotherhood groups that opposed Mubarak in Egypt and are now behind ISIS in Iraq and Syria. And Turkey's involved in this as well, because Chris Stevens, even the night he died, was having meetings with one of the Turkish ambassadors, and I'm convinced, as we just published a book by Aaron Klein, that the entire background of the Benghazi situation was a fast and furious operation that the Obama administration was running in the Middle East to provide arms to this Syrian rebel army, which in effect is ISIS, and it was opposing Assad and it was opposing Iran.
Well, the BBC had live feeds of them going into Tripoli and other areas when Gaddafi collapsed, waving flags and with signs in English saying, Syria's next. And now they're in Syria. They said Iraq's next. And the next they say Europe and the U.S. is next.
And never forget that Obama was raised a Sunni Muslim in Indonesia. He was raised a Sunni. That's what his stepfather was.
So what's the real intel? Was that a deep cover CIA deal with his mom? We know she was. Or is he really think he's the Grand Mahdi? And is there some kind of deal behind the scenes? Because I always thought that theory I've been hearing for 8 years was crazy since the start of his election. But now, I mean, my gosh, if that's not what's going on, it's a triple cross then at some level, because you got his cousin through him arming the Muslim Brotherhood to overthrow Egypt. You've got just... And he looked so emotional when he was up there talking last night about Muslims and stuff. I mean, if this is true, this is the ultimate double cross.
Remember, his brother in Kenya was accused by the Egyptian government of managing money for the Muslim Brotherhood. And that's, again, ties back to the Obama family. And I've said from the very
beginning. Wasn't it Odinga, too?
And Odinga, too. I mean, Odinga was involved in this as well. You had the entire network. Remember Odinga going back to Gaddafi? These were all, Sunnis. But it's the radical Sunnis, the Muslim Brotherhood, the ISIS, the AlAqaeda faction that Obama has really indirectly and under the table backed. That's the underlying story here. And
what's the grand plan?
Well, the grand plan is ultimately that Sunni Islam triumphs worldwide and defeats every other religion. That's been the plan since the time of, since the Prophet Muhammad died and the fight began between the Sunnis and the Shiites.
Why has Israel been going along with this? Because they got to deal with Saudi Arabia?
Well, Israel in the moment is really just surviving. It's got so many enemies and so many different fronts that for the moment, the real enemy is Hamas, and it's being funded by Iran. And again, the Muslim Brotherhood is behind Hamas. So in a sense, the Sunnis and the ISIS divert some of the attention away from Israel. But at the same time, these are all extremely dangerous. There's no way to make a deal with any of these forces. There's no good forces here. It's just understanding the conflict, understanding that Obama sides with the radical Sunnis. Because I've always said two things about Obama. His background looks like a CIA plant. And he said himself in Cairo, he's experienced Islam on 3 continents. Obama was raised a Sunni, was raised a radical revolutionary Sunni, which is the ideology of the United States is the grand devil, the imperialist nation. And Obama has had this agenda, and I've said it from the very beginning, to advance the cause of radical Sunni Islam, as exemplified by the Muslim Brotherhood, ISIS, and ultimately AlAqaeda. And we've largely pulled out now, such that this bombing that we're going to do is really, pointless. If we really wanted to go after ISIS, when they were running through Iraq in columns on open desert roads, ISIS could have been easily devastated with serious attacks, not just one sortie.
Oh, they were given the weapons up front and allowed in to regroup and then give the pretext to go bomb them in Syria in a way of defeating them, but it's really going to be Assad. How is Obama going to try to flip this around then and start bombing Assad targets? Or will they use the so-called money to the non-radical rebels that'll really go towards fighting Assad on the ground?
As soon as you get an incident, as soon as we have a flyover that is attacked, remember, Obama's already tried this once. He accused Assad of using chemical weapons. This was a year ago. Obama was ramping up to attack Assad and support the Syrian rebels a year ago. And when we all exposed it, that in fact it was the rebels who were using the chemical weapons, it wasn't Assad. We embarrassed the Obama.
And it's not that we're for Assad. We just go tell the truth.
Truth, just the truth. I mean, the truth is the United States is the origin of ISIS. And knowledgeably with the Saudis and Qatar, who we still continue to work with, both, knowing that ISIS was being funded, we armed ISIS, not only with the weapons through Christopher Stevens and the CIA, but ISIS is operating now with all the military equipment that the United States provided that the Iraqi army.
Where do you expect this to go now? I mean, can the political establishment get away with this?
I just think you're going to either have a continuing, Obama's now gone out and given this speech last night, and he's told the American people he's going to, go after ISIS. His strategy, all it's going to take is one more beheading by ISIS, and anyone who thinks that ISIS is going to be deterred for public relations reasons doesn't understand ISIS. They want to terrorize the world. They have every intention of continuing the beheadings. They'll do acts of terror if they can get away with it. They are going to do everything they can to provoke a fighting gun.
And what is Obama going to do when ISIS or ISIS sympathizers blow up a sports stadium when he had the border wide open? How are they going to get away with that? They're not.
This whole strategy is Obama is rapidly losing control of the entire strategy. Just like I said, when the Arab Spring, we were bound to lose control. We did, but look at now, we've got a military government in Egypt. Obama did not back the military government. He has not come clean with the number of Muslim Brotherhood that have been criminally prosecuted in Egypt. We were withdrawing our aid from Egypt at a time when Russia was moving in and supporting Egypt. We're creating a vacuum here for Russia to move in and to be much more detrimental in their activity in the Middle East. But the United States right now is operating in a confused state where Obama is asking us to back the rebels who are in fact part of ISIS. So we're attacking ISIS while we're supporting ISIS. And that's not going to work.
That makes my head hurt.
It does. It's very confusing. But remember, it's very simple. If you go back and say Sunni versus Shiite, and what we're doing is ISIS and the rebels fighting Assad are both Sunni.
And again, if the Shiites were on the offense